Welcome to Night Lesson. Relax and learn along the way. Intro. For a moment, imagine an intelligence so alien it stretches the very bounds of our imagination. An intelligence that came to us not from the distant, twinkling stars, but from the silent, unfathomable depths of our own world's oceans. We often look to the heavens in search of foreign life forms, overlooking the alien-like beings that have inhabited the oceans for eons. The octopus is perhaps the closest we may ever come to encountering a true alien. Its evolutionary line diverged from our own over 500 million years ago, in a time when life on Earth was still in its infancy. Since then, its mind has developed on a completely different, parallel path. A mind that is not centralized in a skull, but is decentralized, distributed across 8 arms, each of which seems to possess a kind of consciousness of its own. Just imagine that. A thinking body, not just a thinking head. This journey will take us into the fascinating world of this creature. We will explore its thinking limbs, which can solve problems independently of one another. We will unveil the secret of its skin, which can perceive not only colors but also light, as if countless tiny eyes were scattered across its body. And together, we will approach the question of what it truly means to be intelligent when the brain is not everything. So now, let all the thoughts of the day gently drift away, like sand trickling through your fingers. Breathe deeply, and join me in the silent, blue depths of the ocean. To a creature that can teach us more about the diversity of life and the possibilities of consciousness than we ever dared to dream. Our exploration begins here, in the peaceful twilight of the sea. Chapter 1. The Ancient Divergence. Let us sink deeper, not just through the water, but through time. The world around you is changing. The cool blue gives way to a warmer, murkier green. The light becomes more diffuse, as if filtered through a veil of millions of years. We are traveling back, far back, to a place no human eye has ever seen. Over 500 million years into the past, to an era known as the Cambrian. The silence here is different. It is not an empty silence, but one filled with the quiet, incessant hum of primordial life. The seabed is not a sandy bed, but a bizarre, living carpet. Strange, fern-like organisms sway in the current, neither plant nor animal as we know them. Armored trilobites, looking like alien wood lice, crawled deliberately across the mud, leaving fleeting traces in the sediment of Earth's history. Above them float beings that seem to have sprung from a dream. Small, segmented creatures with 5 eyes and a trunk-like grasping claw. This is the cradle of complexity, a global laboratory where evolution experimented with countless blueprints for life. And here, in this alien garden, a creature of unassuming importance moves. It is tiny, perhaps only a few millimeters long, and resembles a simple little worm. It has a front and a back, a top and a bottom. It possesses light-sensitive cells to distinguish between light and dark, and a rudimentary nerve net that allows it to react to its environment. Scientists call this hypothetical ancestor or bilateria, the common ancestor of almost all animals that have a left and a right side of the body, including you and the octopus. This small being carries within it the potential for all that will follow. It is a seed that holds the blueprint for eyes and limbs, for hearts and brains. And right here, in the warm, oxygen-poor soup of the Cambrian Ocean, life stands at a crucial fork in the road. A moment of such profound consequence that its echoes still resonate today in the biology of every complex animal on this planet. Imagine this divergence as a slowly flowing river that meets a rock and splits into 2 separate streams. These 2 streams will flow separately for eons, each carving its own valley, its own landscape, its own unique form of life and consciousness. One stream of the river chooses the path of internal structure. In the descendants of this line, A cartilaginous rod develops along the back, the chorda dorsalis, the first precursor to a spine. The nervous system begins to centralize. Nerve cells cluster at one end of the body, gradually forming a brain, a central processor that sends commands to the rest of the body. It is a path of hierarchy, of top-down control. From this evolutionary stream emerged the first fish, then the amphibians that crawl onto land, the reptiles, the dinosaurs, and finally, the mammals. It is the path that, over countless generations, led to the development of the human brain, this incredibly complex organ that sits in our skull and from which we perceive the world. This is our path, a path based on an internal skeleton and a central command center. But what happened to the other stream of the river? It chose a radically different path, a path of softness, of flexibility, and of distributed intelligence. Instead of developing an internal skeleton, these creatures relied on the hydrostatic pressure of their bodies or developed an external shell for protection. This is the path of the mollusks, the soft-bodied animals, a path that led to the leisurely snails carrying their houses on their backs, and to the sedentary clams that filter the water and retreat into their shells. At first glance, this path seems less dynamic, less spectacular. But in the depths of this evolutionary stream, something extraordinary happened. One group of these mollusks, the cephalopods, took a direction that would lead this alternative blueprint to its most astonishing expression. They lost their protective outer shell or integrated it into their body for buoyancy. They became active hunters, fast and agile. And most importantly, they developed a nervous system that remained true to the philosophy of decentralization. Instead of concentrating all processing power in a single brain in the head, they distributed it throughout the body. Each arm developed its own form of autonomy, its own cluster of neurons that could act and feel independently. The central brain became more of a conductor of an orchestra than a dictator. It sets the general direction, but the individual musicians, the arms, improvise and interpret the melody in their own way. The octopus is the living culmination of this 500-million-year-old experiment. It is the masterpiece of a completely different approach to solving the problem of being intelligent in the world. So, when we look at an octopus, we see not just another sea creature. We are gazing across an evolutionary chasm of more than 500 million years. The last common ancestor we share with it is that tiny, worm-like being that glided over the Cambrian seabed. Since that time, our paths have not crossed. Everything that makes up the octopus, its soft anatomy, its distributed consciousness, its ability to camouflage, has evolved completely independently of the development of vertebrates. Its intelligence is not a primitive version of ours. It is an alternative intelligence, a second, successful genesis of the mind on our own planet. Nothing illustrates this fundamental otherness as impressively as the color of its blood. When you cut yourself, a bright red fluid emerges. The red comes from hemoglobin, an iron-based molecule that transports oxygen through your body. Iron, when it reacts with oxygen, in a way, it rusts, creating that characteristic red color. But the blood of the octopus follows a different chemistry. Imagine you could peer through its translucent skin and see the life fluid pulsating through its 3 hearts. You would not see red. Instead, you would see a delicate, almost ethereal blue. Its blood is blue. The reason for this is a molecule called hemocyanin. Instead of iron, it uses copper as the central atom to bind oxygen. And copper gives the oxygen-rich blood this surreal, blue hue. This is more than just a biological curiosity. It is a symbol of the deep chasm that separates us. Even at the most fundamental biochemical level, life here has chosen a different path. Hemocyanin is more efficient than hemoglobin in cold, low-oxygen environments, like those found in the depths of the ocean. It is a perfect adaptation to its world, But it also underscores that the octopus is built according to a completely different set of rules. So we stand on the bank of an ancient river that divided an unimaginable time ago. On our side of the bank stand we, the vertebrates, with our bones, our red blood, and our centralized minds. And on the other side, barely visible through the mists of time, moves a being of softness, blue blood, and a mind that resides throughout its entire body. To understand the octopus, we must set aside our own notions of what a mind is and where it resides. We must embark on a journey to that other shore and try to see the world through eyes that evolved independently of our own, and to feel with a mind whose architecture is as alien to us as the landscape of a distant planet. This journey begins with exploring the extraordinary anatomy of this distributed nervous system, a network of intelligence that slumbers in each of its 8 arms. Chapter 2. A Body That Thinks. What would intelligence look like if it were not bound to a single place? If you could represent an octopus's nervous system as a luminous map, a kind of neurological galaxy, you would see something completely unexpected. In the center, there would be a small, discrete ring of light, a warm but inconspicuous glow. But from this center, 8 immense spiral arms of pure, radiant light would extend. These arms, filling most of the map, would pulse and sparkle, each one a luminous nebula of neural activity, far brighter and more complex than the modest core from which they spring. This image reveals a deep secret. The octopus does not just think with its head. It thinks with its entire body. Let's begin at the center of this luminous map, with what we would call its brain. Even here, we find a form that challenges our conceptions. An octopus's brain is not a compact, protected node like ours. It is shaped like a donut, a torus, that encircles its esophagus. Every bite of food it takes, every clam it cracks, every piece of crab it consumes, must literally pass through the center of its thought on its journey to the stomach. An incredible, almost surreal idea. As food glides silently through this biological ring, the surrounding nerve cells process complex information, analyzing visual stimuli, making strategic decisions, and remembering past events. It is an anatomy that suggests a deep, inseparable connection between thought and nourishment, between the mind and the most fundamental processes of life. But this central brain, however strangely shaped, is merely the conductor of a much larger orchestra. It is the seat of its higher consciousness, but not the sole locus of intelligence. Of the roughly 500 million neurons an octopus possesses, about the same number as a dog, less than a third are located in this central ring. The rest, an overwhelming majority of over 300 million neurons, are distributed out in the arms. Each of the 8 arms is not just a limb, but an independent processing center, a kind of daughter brain. Running along the axis of each arm is a thick nerve cord, interspersed with a series of complex nerve clusters called the brachial ganglia. These ganglia are the source of the arm's remarkable autonomy. Together, they form a decentralized network that controls most of the arm's actions without direct instruction from the central brain. The central brain often issues only a general command, a declaration of intent like, investigate that crevice, or move in this direction. It is like a king who issues a decree but leaves all the logistics and execution to his capable governors in the provinces. The arm receives this command and begins to work on its own. It decides how to bend, which suckers to use, and how to coordinate its countless muscles to complete the task. It can not only feel a surface, but also taste it. Every one of its hundreds of suckers is equipped with chemoreceptors, providing it with a wealth of information about the chemical makeup of whatever it touches. When a sucker glides over a clam, it is not just a tactile experience, but a gustatory one as well. The arm knows whether it is touching a rock, a fellow octopus, or a potential meal long before this information reaches the central brain. It can even make reflexive decisions. If it touches something dangerous or unpalatable, it retracts without having to wait for confirmation from headquarters. This distributed intelligence solves a fundamental problem posed by the octopus's almost infinite flexibility. We humans have an innate sense of where our arms and legs are in space, even with our eyes closed. This sense is called proprioception. It is made possible by the fact that our limbs have a fixed number of joints and a limited range of motion. Our brain has a kind of internal map of our body. The octopus lacks this. Its arms have no bones, no joints, and can bend, stretch, and twist at any point in any direction. The number of possible configurations for a single arm is astronomical. For a central brain, it would be an unsolvable computational task to track and control the position of every single arm segment in real time. So it doesn't. The octopus bypasses this problem by delegating responsibility. The brain doesn't know exactly what the arm is doing, but the arm knows itself. It handles the fine details of its own movement, its shape, and its interaction with the environment. This autonomy is so profound that even a severed arm can continue to live and act for a period of time. It squirms, reacts to touch, and if it finds a piece of food, it grasps it and tries to move it to where the octopus's mouth would be, a ghostly echo of a once unified will. Let's imagine this symphony of limbs in action. An octopus approaches a complex coral reef full of crevices and holes. Its central brain decides to search for prey. It sends a general signal to its arms. And then the concert begins. Arm 1 snakes into a narrow opening. Its suckers feeling and tasting the walls, like the fingers of a master thief exploring the inside of a safe. Arms 2 and 3 anchor the body to the coral, providing stability. Arm 4 investigates another cave, while Arm 5 fends off a curious fish that gets too close. Each arm works on its own local task, solving small, specific problems and processing sensory data. They communicate with each other through subtle changes in skin tension and perhaps in ways we do not yet understand. They form a cooperative collective, a thinking, feeling cloud of flesh that moves intelligently through its environment. The central brain monitors progress, gathers the most important findings from the arms, and makes the next major strategic decision. It is not a dictator shouting commands, but a wise observer listening to the collective wisdom of its body. This decentralized intelligence is a completely different way of existing. It is a mind that is not confined to the head but flows through the body, a consciousness that may not be singular, but a federation of 8 brilliant, semi-autonomous minds held together by a central awareness. When we watch an octopus move with a fluid, unpredictable grace, we are not just seeing an animal moving. We are seeing a body that thinks. This realization opens the door to even deeper questions. If each arm feels, tastes, and experiences its own world, how does this mosaic of countless, simultaneous impressions merge into a single perception? Or perhaps it isn't one. Perhaps the octopus's experience is a fractured one, a simultaneous existence in 8 different sensory realities, only loosely woven into a whole. To explore this, we must look more closely at its senses, especially its incredible ability to see with its skin. Chapter 3. The Living Canvas, Camouflage and Communication. What does it mean to see with the skin? It doesn't begin with an image as we know it, but with a feeling of light falling on a surface. Let's look at this surface up close, so close that the shape of the octopus blurs, and only the pattern remains. We see a mosaic, a living, breathing canvas made up of millions of tiny, autonomous cells. This is the language of its skin, and its first function is silence. Complete invisibility. As the octopus glides over the seabed, it is a master of adaptation, a ghost in the current. Its journey takes it over a patch of bright sand, illuminated by the sun. The moment its soft arms touch the bottom, the transformation occurs. An impulse, faster than a thought, ripples through its body. Thousands of tiny pigment sacs in its skin, the chromatophores, react. Those containing dark pigments, black, brown, red, instantly contract, becoming tiny dots, almost invisible. Simultaneously, the sacs with light, yellow, and orange pigments expand, flattening out and presenting their color to the world. Underlying layers of cells, the iridophores, capture the incoming light and reflect it, creating iridescent blues and greens that mimic the sparkle of the water above the sand. Another layer, the leucophores, scatters the light diffusely, creating a perfect, matte white that precisely matches the color of the finest sand grains. The result is not a mere approximation, but a perfect replica. It becomes sand, but its journey continues. It reaches the edge of a seagrass bed, its dark blades swaying. Again, the change pulses across its skin. The light chromatophores contract, the dark ones expand, creating streaky, vertical patterns that mirror the play of light and shadow in the seagrass. But color alone is not enough for a perfect deception. Small muscle bundles just beneath the skin's surface, the papillae, contract. Where its skin was just smooth and sandy, dozens of small spikes and ridges now sprout. Its silhouette breaks up, becomes irregular, mimicking the texture of the plants around it. It is no longer an animal hiding in the seagrass. It has become part of the seagrass. Finally, it reaches an old piece of rock overgrown with algae and coral. The complexity of this surface is an immense challenge. Countless colors, from deep red to vibrant orange to mossy green, interspersed with the dark crevices of the rock. The octopus does not hesitate. Its skin becomes a canvas for an impressionistic masterpiece. Patches of red and orange bloom, shot through with dark, irregular lines. The papillae work at full capacity, creating a three-dimensional topography on its back that exactly replicates the porous, craggy surface of the rock. It settles against the stone, and in less than a second, it has vanished. A fish swims by, oblivious, just centimeters away. The octopus is a living contradiction, a boneless creature that can take on the hardness of stone, a soft animal that imitates the sharpness of coral. But here begins the real puzzle, a deep biological mystery. Let's imagine for a moment how the octopus perceives this scene. Its highly developed eyes, so strikingly similar in structure to our own, take in the world around it. Yet its reality is different from ours. While we see a kaleidoscope of colors, the bright red of the coral, the rich green of the algae, the octopus sees a world in shades of gray. Its eyes possess only a single type of photoreceptor, which means it cannot distinguish colors. It is colorblind. So, one inevitably asks, how can a colorblind animal imitate the colors of its surroundings with such precision? How can it reproduce a red that it cannot see? The answer seems as alien as the animal itself. It lies not in its eyes, but in the very organ that performs the magic, its skin. Scientists discovered that the octopus's skin is peppered with the same light-sensitive proteins, the opsins, that are found in the retina of its eyes. Its skin can perceive light. Every square centimeter of its body is potentially a rudimentary eye. It is not seeing in the conventional sense, not a sharp image sent to a brain. It is more of a direct, local response to wavelengths and intensities. The skin senses the light that falls upon it, and the chromatophores respond directly, almost like a reflex. It is decentralized intelligence at work, a form of seeing feeling. While its eyes perceive the shapes, contrasts, and textures, its skin feels the colors and paints the picture, without the central brain ever having to consciously perceive the color red. It is a divided perception. The eyes provide the monochrome blueprint. The skin fills it in with color. But this incredible ability is not just for hiding. The same living canvas that can make it invisible can also turn it into a flashing beacon. Camouflage is just one language of its skin. The other is communication. a vocabulary of color and light. When another octopus enters its territory, the skin switches from passive adaptation to active statement. The gentle, earthy tones vanish, making way for a dramatic display. Dark, pulsating waves race across its body, from its arms to its mantle, an unmistakable sign of aggression. This is my space. Back away. Perhaps its entire body suddenly flashes an alarming, pale white, a visual scream signaling dominance. If a predator approaches, it can put on a so-called dymatic display. Suddenly, two large, dark spots appear on its mantle, looking like giant eyes, framed by a bright ring. It spreads its arms, making itself as large as possible. The sudden, unexpected transformation into a large, menacingly staring creature can make an attacker hesitate for the crucial moment needed to escape. During courtship, the language becomes softer, more hypnotic. A male approaches a female, and his skin begins to shimmer. Gentle, zebra-like stripes flow over his body, a rhythmic, almost calming pattern that signals his peaceful intentions. It is a dance of light, a visual poetry that conveys complex messages about his readiness to mate and his genetic fitness. Some species can even split this visual conversation. Imagine an octopus positioned between a rival and a potential mate. It can keep one half of its body in the aggressive, dark patterns facing the rival, while the other half, facing the female, displays the gentle courtship stripes. It is holding two different conversations at the same time, with the same body. This ability to use one's own appearance as a language is taken to its peak by a master of deception, the mimic octopus. This creature is not content with adapting to its environment. It actively imitates other animals, and not just any animals, but specifically those feared by predators. We watch it moving across the open seabed, a dangerous place for a soft, defenseless animal. As a predatory fish approaches, it transforms. It pulls its 8 arms in close to its body, flattens its skin, and assumes a flat, leaf-like shape. It begins to move just above the sand with an undulating motion. It is no longer an octopus. It is now a venomous flatfish, whose appearance and movement it perfectly imitates. The predatory fish hesitates and moves on. A little later, in a different situation, the mimic octopus chooses another form. It buries its body in 7 of its arms in the sand, leaving only one arm sticking out. It colors this one arm with black and white bands and moves it in a serpentine fashion through the water. The likeness is astounding. It has become a highly venomous sea snake, an animal that hardly any predator dares to attack. The crowning achievement of its performance is perhaps the imitation of the lionfish. It spreads its arms wide, arranging them radially around its body, and colors them with the characteristic brown and white stripes of this fish. Then it floats majestically through the open water, mimicking the slow, confident swimming style of the venomous spined fish. This is more than just a physical transformation. It requires a remarkable degree of observation and cognitive ability. The mimic octopus must not only know what these animals look like and how they move, but it must also understand that these specific animals are feared by its potential predators. It takes on the role of another to survive. Thus, the skin of the octopus is both a cloak of invisibility and a stage for expression. It is an organ that simultaneously perceives the world and speaks to it. In one moment, it is a silent, passive reflection of the environment. In the next, a loud, active declaration of intent, emotion, and identity. This dual nature, this constant flow between being and seeming, gives us a glimpse of how different an intelligence can be that does not hide its thoughts and feelings, but wears them for all to see on its own skin. It raises the question of what such an existence feels like, where the boundary between the inner self and the outer world is so permeable and mutable. Chapter 4. The Thinker, Problem-Solving, Play, and Personality. A mind without bones thinks differently. Where we are bound to fixed forms by joints and skeletons, a world of infinite possibilities begins for the octopus. Its body is a single fluid substance, a bundle of muscle that can shape and change itself to defy the laws of rigid physics. Its only solid part, the beak-like mouth, is the anchor around which its entire existence twists and turns. Imagine a fist-sized octopus pausing before a tiny crack in a rock wall. The opening is barely larger than a coin, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. But for the octopus, it is just another door. Slowly, deliberately, one arm begins to feel the edges, to explore the texture. Then the rest of the body follows in a movement that resembles not so much a squeezing through as an elegant flowing. It is a ballet of anatomy, where muscles stretch, the skin yields, and the entire organism becomes a liquid form that streams through the narrow passage, only to regain its shape on the other side. This physical freedom is not just a survival trick. It is the foundation of its cognitive abilities. A being that is not physically constrained learns to think mentally, as well, in terms of possibilities rather than limitations. This problem-solving ability is nowhere more evident than in the artificial world of aquariums. For us, they are designed habitats. For an octopus, they are complex puzzles to be solved. Keepers repeatedly report on nocturnal escapades, of tanks that are empty in the morning, while the escapee is found in a neighboring tank, having feasted on the fish. They watch the people who manage their world from the outside. They learn the rhythms of feeding, the mechanics of lids and latches. They are masters of patience and quiet analysis. A classic experiment that demonstrates this intelligence is the screw-top jar. A treat, perhaps a crab, is placed in a jar with a tightly screwed lid and put into the tank. The octopus approaches, its curiosity piqued. Its arms envelop the jar, the suckers adhering to the smooth surface, feeling every contour. At first, it might try to break the jar with brute force or tear off the lid. But soon, a different process begins. One arm wraps around the body of the jar, holding it steady. Another begins to grip the lid. There is no innate knowledge of threads. It is a process of motor learning, of trial and error. The octopus feels the slight resistance, then the give, as it turns in the right direction. It learns the movement, storing it in its decentralized nervous system. In a time-lapse shot from inside the jar, one would see a patient, methodical choreography. The arms work in coordination. The gaze of the eyes is focused until the lid finally comes loose and the path to the reward is clear. Once an octopus has solved this puzzle, it does not forget the solution. Its short-term and long-term memory allow it to store the successful strategy and apply it much more quickly the next time. Even more astounding is the ability to learn not only from its own experience, but also through observation. This has been impressively documented in controlled studies. An octopus in one tank had to solve a specific puzzle to get food, for example, operating a lever or choosing a colored ball. In an adjacent tank, separated by a glass pane, sat another octopus that merely watched. After the first octopus had successfully mastered the task several times, the observing octopus was confronted with the same puzzle. Without its own trial and error, without the long phase of learning, it often solved the task on the first try. It had understood the principle simply by watching. This is a form of social learning long thought to be the privilege of highly developed vertebrates like primates, dolphins, or birds. In a mollusk whose evolutionary path diverged from ours over 500 million years ago, it is a profound indication of the convergent evolution of complex intelligence. But this intelligence is not limited to reacting to set tasks. It also manifests in forward planning and tool use in the wild. The veined octopus, an inhabitant of the sandy seabeds of Indonesia, is the best example of this. Researchers filmed these animals finding empty coconut shells on the seafloor. Instead of ignoring them, they pick up the halves. They clutch the shells under their bodies and carry them along while walking across the seabed on two of its arms. It is an awkward, almost comical sight, yet it is one of profound intent. The octopus is not dragging this burden for no reason. When it later needs to rest or a threat approaches, it puts the two halves together and retreats inside this self-built, portable fortress. This is more than just using a found object. It is the collection of a tool for a future, yet to occur need, a clear demonstration of planning and foresight. Beyond these impressive cognitive achievements, there is another dimension that brings us closer to the mind of the octopus, its penchant for play and the existence of individual personalities. Play, that is, behavior performed without an immediate purpose or reward, simply for the joy of the activity itself, is considered a strong indicator of higher consciousness and subjective experience. In aquariums, octopuses have been repeatedly observed playing with objects. They will take an empty bottle and deliberately throw it into the jet of the water filter, just to watch it be propelled back by the current, whereupon they catch it and repeat the whole process. A game of throw and catch that serves no purpose other than the activity itself. Others juggle shells, passing them from arm to arm or balancing them on their heads. This neophilia, the innate curiosity for new and interesting objects, drives their exploratory learning and results in behaviors that we can only describe as playful. It is a moment of pure, purposeless joy, a spark of something we deeply recognize in ourselves. Perhaps it is this capacity for play that lends credibility to the reports from researchers and keepers about the different personalities of the animals. They consistently report that no two octopuses are alike. There are the shy ones, who retreat to the furthest corner of their cave at any approach. There are the bold and curious ones, who immediately come to the glass, extend their arms, and seek contact. Their suckers then gently probe the human hand, a moment of interspecies communication that is deeply touching. Numerous anecdotes support this picture, of one octopus that apparently disliked a particular keeper and would aim a squirt of water at her every time she passed its tank, while ignoring other people. This suggests not only the ability to recognize and distinguish between individual humans, but also what we would call sympathy and antipathy, primitive forms of social emotions. Other octopuses seem to form a special bond with a particular caregiver. They greet them with a specific coloration, allow themselves to be touched, or accept food only from their hand. These observations push the boundaries of what we expect from a mollusk, a body without a skeleton that can fit through the smallest openings. A mind that plans with tools for the future, learns by observation, and solves complex puzzles. And perhaps most fascinating of all, a soul that plays, that develops likes and dislikes, and that is capable of forming individual relationships with other beings, even those belonging to a completely different world. The thinker in the deep is not just a cold, logical problem-solving machine. It possesses a warmth, a spark of individuality that invites us to reflect on the true nature of intelligence and consciousness. It shows us that a rich inner experience needs no spine to exist. Chapter 5. A Brief, Brilliant Life. What if a whole, rich life is not measured in decades, but in the density of moments, in the intensity of every single breath? For most octopus species, time is a strange, compressed gift. Their existence is a fleeting meteor in the sky of evolution, dazzlingly bright, full of wonder, and astonishingly quick to burn out. 1 or 2 years, that is often all they are given. A blink of an eye compared to the ancient turtles or the whales that cross oceans while human generations come and go. But in this short span, an entire universe of becoming unfolds. Imagine a tiny, almost transparent larva, no bigger than a grain of rice, drifting as part of the plankton through the endless blue. It is prey for almost everything larger than itself, a tiny speck of life in an ocean full of dangers. Yet, Within this fragile body slumbers a blueprint for genius. Within a few months, this plan unfolds with breathtaking speed. The small creature grows, its neurons connecting at a pace almost unparalleled in nature. It learns to read the currents, to interpret the colors of the reef, and to sense the intentions of other beings. Its life is a single, uninterrupted frenzy of learning. Each day brings new puzzles and new solutions. How to crack the shell of this particular clam? Where does the tastiest crab hide? Which shadow on the seafloor belongs to a predator, and which is just a harmless cloud passing over the sun? The octopus learns not by instinct alone, but through observation, through trial and error, through a form of focused, conscious engagement with its world. In just a few months, it develops a cognitive complexity that other animal species, including many long-lived mammals, take years or even a lifetime to achieve. It becomes the master of its environment, a silent sovereign of arms and mind. And then, at the peak of its cognitive and physical powers, when it has grasped the world in all its facets, the final act begins. An act so deeply embedded in its biology that there is no escape. Almost all octopuses are simulparous, a scientific term for a profound, poetic, and tragic truth. They reproduce only once in their lifetime. There is no second chance, no late love, no growing old alongside a partner. There is only this one, all-consuming moment of passing on life, which is immediately followed by its own death. For the male, the end is often swift and unspectacular. After mating, during which he uses a specialized arm to deliver a packet of sperm to the female, his body begins to slowly deteriorate. He loses his appetite, his legendary curiosity fades, and within a few weeks or months, his lifeless body drifts away with the current. For the female, however, a long, sacrificial journey into nothingness begins. She seeks out a sheltered place, a rock crevice, an empty seashell, or a den. She digs herself in the sand. There she lays her eggs, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands. They are not individual spheres, but hang in garlands from the ceiling of her refuge, like translucent, pearlescent grapes. Each egg contains a tiny, pulsating, the beginning of a new life, the start of a new, brilliant mind. And now her vigil begins. For weeks, sometimes months, she will not leave this place. Her entire existence is reduced to a single, all-consuming task, the protection of her legacy. She stops eating completely. The hunger that drove her throughout her life, that made her such a brilliant hunter, is overridden by an even more powerful instinct. Her 8 arms, which once curiously explored the world, are now devoted exclusively to care. Tirelessly, she fans fresh, oxygen-rich water over the egg clutches to protect them from fungi and bacteria. She removes any foreign object, any grain of sand that could threaten the delicate casings, with infinite patience. She fends off predators trying to enter her sanctuary, using the last of her fading body's strength. As the embryos grow inside the transparent capsules, their tiny eyes can be seen as dark spots, their bodies slowly taking shape. The mother watches this as she herself slowly fades away. Her skin, once a living canvas of shimmering colors and patterns, becomes pale and dull. Her muscles atrophy. Her body becomes limp and thin. It is not a decay from disease or old age in the conventional sense. It is a programmed death, a biological self-sacrifice. Scientists call this process senescence, and it is controlled by hormonal changes originating from a small gland near her eyes, the optic gland. It is as if an internal switch is flipped, giving the command to redirect all energy from self-preservation to the preservation of the next generation. And then comes the day when the young are ready. One by one, the tiny, perfect octopuses hatch from their egg cases. They are fully formed miniatures of their parents, equipped with everything they need to survive. For a brief, magical moment, The den is filled with a swirling swarm of new life. Thousands of tiny minds float around their mother, like sparks rising from a dying fire. It is the culmination of her life, the moment for which she gave everything. Her mission is complete. Often, it is this moment of hatching that breaks her final will to live. Sometimes she lives just long enough to see her children carried away by the ocean currents to begin their own brief, brilliant lives. Then she lets go. Her body, now just an empty shell, gives way, and she dies peacefully in her den. In the infinite, cold depths of the Pacific, an exception was once found that takes this rule to the extreme. A female of the species Granulidon boreopacifica was observed guarding her clutch at a depth of nearly 1,400 meters. Time and again, researchers returned to this spot with their submersible robot. For over 4.5 years, she remained there, without eating, fanning water over her eggs as the world went on above her. It is the longest known brooding period in the entire animal kingdom, a silent, epic devotion in absolute darkness. When the researchers returned to that spot one last time, they found only empty, shrunken egg casings. The young had hatched, fully developed, immediately on their own. The female was gone, her task fulfilled. The extreme cold of the deep-sea water had slowed embryonic development so much that the mother had to wait more than 4 years for life to be ready. This silent departure, once life has been passed on, holds the deepest mystery the octopus presents to us. Why does evolution create such a complex, learning, and curious mind, only to extinguish it after such a short time? And even more puzzling, since the parents die before their children grow up, there is no transmission of learned knowledge. There is no culture, no teachings passed from one generation to the next. Each of these thousands of young, now drifting out into the ocean, must learn the world from scratch. Every generation starts from zero. The incredible ability of an octopus to open a jar, solve a maze, or recognize a human is not a cultural achievement refined over centuries. It is a purely individual accomplishment, newly won in each single life. It is as if a unique, priceless library is created within each octopus, full of observations, experiences, and solutions, a library that is irretrievably burned after just 2 years to make way for the next one. This existence is an endless cycle of solitary brilliance and inevitable forgetting. A brief, intense flicker of consciousness, arising alone in the darkness of the deep and then fading away, never able to share its wisdom. And as the tiny offspring float away into the vastness of the ocean, they carry with them nothing but the genetic blueprint for a mind that is both doomed and blessed to rediscover the world in its own unique and fleeting way. Chapter 6. Dreams in the Deep. What happens when such an alien mind comes to rest? When the 8 thinking arms fall still and the countless chromatophores stop mirroring the world around them. Does an octopus simply close its eyes and wait for the next day? Or does it, like us, embark on a journey into an inner world that belongs only to it? In 2019, the world witnessed a fleeting moment that cast these questions in a new light. In a documentary called Octopus, Making Contact, marine biologist David Scheel was observing his octopus, Heidi, who appeared to be asleep in her tank. She lay motionless on the bottom, her skin a pale, almost ghostly white, a sign of deep relaxation. But then, something unexpected happened. Like a sudden thought flitting across a canvas, Heidi's body began to flicker. For a brief moment, her skin underwent a dramatic transformation. A dark, cloudy pattern spread across it, as if she were remembering the shadowy seabed. Then, the color shifted to a mottled, complex camouflage pattern that would have been perfect for a coral reef. Her muscles twitched, her suckers pulsed gently. For a fraction of a second, she seemed to be chasing a crab or fleeing from a predator. Her skin told a story without words, a visual echo of an experience. A few seconds later, it was over. Heidi turned pale and quiet again, submerged in a state that we could only interpret as sleep. This scene traveled around the world and sparked a debate. Was that a dream? An involuntary reflex? Or something else entirely that we do not yet understand? The answer was not long in coming, and it came from a lab in Brazil. In 2021, a team led by scientist Silvia Medeiros published a groundbreaking study in the journal iScience. They had systematically observed the sleep of octopuses and made an astonishing discovery. The sleep of these animals is not simply a state of inactivity. It is, just like in us humans, divided into two distinct phases. The first phase they called quiet sleep. In this state, the octopus is completely still. Its skin takes on a uniform, light color, often a pure white or a soft beige. The pupils of its eyes constrict to narrow slits, and its breathing is slow and steady. Its body is relaxed, the arms lying loosely or slightly curled. This is a phase of deep rest, in which the nervous system calms down and regenerates. But then, in a regular cycle of about 30 to 40 minutes, the transformation occurs. The octopus enters the second phase, active sleep. This state lasts only 1 to 2 minutes, but in this short time, a whole spectacle unfolds. The octopus's eyes begin to move rapidly back and forth under its closed lids. Its arms and mantle twitch uncontrollably. And above all, its skin awakens into kaleidoscopic life. Colors and patterns race across its body, as if a projector were casting inner images onto its surface. These are not random flashes, but often coherent patterns that the octopus uses when awake for hunting, camouflage, or communication. A dark, intimidating pattern might flash, followed by the perfect imitation of a sandy bottom. It is a silent play, performed on the stage of its own skin. The parallels to our own sleep are astounding. We, too, go through cycles of deep, quiet sleep and a phase we call REM sleep, rapid eye movement. In this phase, our eyes move rapidly, our body twitches, and our brain is almost as active as when we are awake. And it is the phase in which we have our most vivid, pictorial dreams. The discovery that an invertebrate, whose evolutionary path diverged from ours over 500 million years ago, has developed such a similar sleep architecture is of profound significance. It suggests that this form of active sleep is not a random peculiarity of mammals, but possibly a universal necessity for any complex nervous system. A brain that learns, remembers, and solves complex problems may need to process and reorganize this information during sleep, regardless of whether it resides in a human skull or in a soft, boneless body. But here, the similarity ends and the real mystery begins. If an octopus dreams, what exactly does it dream of? A human dream is the narrative of a centralized mind. Our experiences, fears, and hopes are woven into stories by our brain. But the mind of the octopus is not bound to one place. It is decentralized. Its central brain in its head controls the overarching decisions, but 2/3 of its neurons are in its 8 arms. Each arm can feel, taste, and move independently. Each arm possesses its own form of intelligence. So, does only the central brain dream? Does it replay the day's events? The opening of a screw-top jar, the escape from a shark, the encounter with another octopus? And are the color changes on the skin just an involuntary echo of these central dreams, just as we sometimes mumble or twitch in our sleep? Or is it something much more alien? Could it be that the arms dream, too? Does one arm dream of the rough texture of a rocket explored? Another of the smooth surface of a clam it broke open? Does a third dream of the desperate struggle of a crab it held in its grasp? In this scenario, the sleeping octopus would not be a single dreamer, but a community of 9 dreaming minds, united in one body. The flickering on its skin would then not be the story of a single consciousness, but a mosaic of the fragmented memories and sensations of its many centers of thought. The play of colors on Heidi's skin could be the visual manifestation of these distributed dreams. A pattern representing the brain's memory of a reef could be overlaid by a sudden twitch of an arm remembering the fight with prey. The result would be a surreal, impressionistic collage of sensations and experiences, a visual stream of consciousness that we can observe but never truly decipher. Perhaps an octopus does not dream in images and stories as we do, but in pure patterns and textures. A dream could be the feeling of water flowing over the skin in a particular way, or the perfect simulation of camouflage for a seabed it has never seen but constructs from its genetic memories. Its dreams may not be retellings of the past, but exercises for the future, a nightly training for the ballet of camouflage that ensures its survival. Right at this moment, as you listen to these words and your own mind slowly prepares for the quiet of the night, this miracle is happening somewhere in the infinite expanse of the oceans. In a dark cave, under a rocky ledge, or amidst seagrass, an octopus lies sleeping. Its skin is pale and still. But soon, the time will come again. For a fleeting moment, its surface will spring to life. Colors will flow across it like an aurora borealis on the seafloor. A silent poem will be written on its body, a poem about the hunt, the escape, the curiosity, and the mystery of life in the deep. We see the dancing patterns, but we cannot read the story. We are witnesses to a dream told in a language older than words, a language of light and skin. And in this silent, nocturnal performance lies a deep connection. The universal drive of all complex beings to process, understand, and rearrange the world of the day in the hidden world of the night. A silent bond that connects our dreaming brains with the luminous body of a sleeping octopus, as both descend into the mysterious depths of sleep. Chapter 7. Echoes from the Deep. How does a mind arise that dreams so strangely, whose inner world is based on such a radically different architecture? The answer leads us away from the idea that intelligence is a single, shining mountain peak that evolution inevitably climbs. We humans tend to see ourselves on this peak, with our language, our culture, and our social structures as proof of our superiority. But the octopus invites us to abandon this perspective. It shows us that there is no single mountain, but an entire mountain range of cognitive possibilities, a vast landscape with countless peaks, each impressive in its own way, each reached by a unique path. Our peak is carved from the rock of community. Our intelligence is cumulative, passed down through generations by stories, writing, and teachings. It is a collective flame, passed from one mind to the next, growing ever larger and brighter. We build on the knowledge of our ancestors. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Our thoughts are shaped by the language we speak, and our consciousness is inextricably linked to the consciousness of others. The peak of the octopus is a completely different place. It is a solitary, ephemeral peak, formed from the ice of individuality and the depths of the ocean. Its intelligence is not cumulative, but spontaneous, a spark that is reignited in the silence of the deep within each individual, only to be extinguished with its short life. With no parents to teach it, no society to preserve knowledge, each octopus must learn the world for itself. Its intelligence is deeply personal, embodied, and anchored in the here and now. It is not a passed-on fire, but a brilliant, short-lived flash in the darkness. Two peaks in the same mountain range of life, but of such different natures that the view from one to the other is like looking at another world. These parallel worlds of the mind are no accident. They are the result of one of the deepest principles of evolution, convergence. Let your thoughts travel far back, much further than the time of the dinosaurs, further than the first-jawed fish, to an era more than 600 million years ago. There, in the primordial seas, swam our last common ancestor with the octopus. It was not a complex being. It was probably a tiny, worm-like creature, equipped with little more than a few light-sensitive cells and a simple nerve cluster, a shimmering promise of what was to come, but not yet a brain. At this point in life's story, the path divided. One line led to the vertebrates, to fish, amphibians, reptiles, and eventually to us. On this path, a central nervous system developed, protected by a spine, with a brain enclosed in a skull. The other path led to the mollusks, to snails, clams, and finally to the cephalopods, the octopuses. Here, a completely different blueprint for thought emerged. Imagine for a moment two planets orbiting in different solar systems. Both have oceans, both have the same fundamental physical laws. On both planets, life begins and faces similar challenges: find food, hide from predators, navigate a complex three-dimensional world. On both planets, completely independently, life develops a remarkable solution to these challenges: a complex nervous system, sharp senses, and the ability to solve problems. This is convergent evolution. It is the realization that intelligence is not a random whim of nature, but a robust and repeatable response to the demands of existence. Perhaps the most impressive testimony to this convergence is the eye. Consider the human eye. It is a complex camera, a lens that focuses light onto a retina, which in turn sends signals to the brain. Now, consider the eye of the octopus. It is strikingly similar. It also has an iris, a lens, and a retina. It can focus and perceive images with astonishing clarity. But this similarity is an illusion of function, not of origin. They are analogous structures, not homologous. They are like two brilliant engineers who never spoke to each other, but were faced with the same problem and arrived at almost identical solutions. When you look at the internal architecture, the differences reveal themselves. The retina of the human eye is, so to speak, wired backwards. The nerve fibers lie in front of the light-sensitive cells and must exit through the retina at one point, which creates our well-known blind spot. The eye of the octopus is more elegantly designed. Its nerve fibers lie behind the receptors, so there is no blind spot. Two paths to achieve the same goal. Imagine these two eyes, ours and that of the octopus, slowly drifting toward each other. From a distance, they seem identical, two luminous spheres of understanding. But the closer they get, the more they reveal their different histories, their independent genius. When they finally merge, they represent not a single truth, but the universal power of life to find ways to see the world. And here lies the deepest lesson, the echo from the deep that the octopus sends to us. It is more than just a fascinating animal. It is a living thought experiment, a mirror held up to us that questions our deepest assumptions about ourselves. We have long considered consciousness our exclusive heritage, something inextricably linked to a spine, warm blood, a life on land, and social structures. The octopus, floating majestically in the deep blue water and looking at you with its alien yet intelligent eyes, refutes all of this. It is proof that a complex mind can arise in an invertebrate body, that deep thought can flourish in the cold, solitary depths, that consciousness is not a single melody that can only be played by a specific instrument, but a universal harmony that can sound in the most diverse forms. Its gaze is an invitation to humility, a reminder that our way of thinking is just one of many. It shares no secret in a language we could understand. Rather, its entire being is the secret, a silent but powerful echo from another world of being, reminding us how much we still do not know, and how wonderfully diverse the phenomenon of the mind truly is. This echo resonates through the vast spans of evolution, reminding us that we are not alone on the peak, but are part of a vast, breathtaking landscape of consciousness. Outro. Our journey through time, 500 million years deep into the past, has brought us to the thinking arms and seeing skin of one of our world's most fascinating creatures. We have learned together that intelligence can take countless forms, and that the greatest mysteries often lie hidden not among the distant stars, but in the silent darkness beneath us. In the oceans of our own planet exists a mind that has evolved on a completely different evolutionary path, a separate genesis of consciousness. The octopus is far more than just an animal. It is a living thought experiment presented to us by nature itself, a mirror that makes us question our own, often so rigid, ideas of mind and intellect. It is the living reminder of how endlessly creative, how wonderfully diverse, and how profoundly unfathomable life on our world still is. An intelligence that does not strive upward, but grows into the depths, that does not conquer, but transforms. Now, let these images and thoughts glide with you into the night. Somewhere in the vast, dark plains of the oceans, such a creature is moving through the cool water at this very moment. Its skin whispers in patterns and colors. Its 8 arms explore and think for themselves. It takes no distant galaxies, no glowing nebulae in the night sky, to find the truly alien. It waits down there, in the darkness, breathing to the rhythm of the tides.
That was today's night lesson. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Good night and sleep well.